before I get into, actually, I don't know if I want to to start opening presentations and all this stuff. Maybe we need to do this, but first, what I want to share with you is that this course actually must have some practical applications. Students need to design something, to evaluate it, and have hands-on experience. They need to develop something, to create something, and feel this, this excitement of creating stuff. The basic structure of an HCI course, as far as I know, consists of the first part, which is a theoretical part. A small part needs to be theoretical. First, we need to show students some basic stuff, the history of HCI, starting with this presentation, lectures. Then we certainly need to explain that human-computer interaction involves two parts, humans and computers. So we need to understand, they need to understand how humans process information, how humans understand and respond to the stimuli they take from the outside environment. In general, interaction is a very common process we do in our everyday lives. I mean, we interact with everything. So we are familiar with this type to provide input and get a response. We change the channels on our TV, we interact with people, and so on. But what is interesting here for students to understand is how human brain processes the information and makes sense of the world, including computers in general. So the first part, actually, I devote about 2 weeks explaining how humans process information and how easy it is for us to trick humans, to trick human brains. Actually, for example, virtual reality and all this stuff is based on the weaknesses of the human brain. And so we explain how memory works, what is short-term memory, long-term memory, how people store information, how people make decisions. We explain the internal database, the internal ontology that people use to make sense of the real world, and how people perceive colors, for example, how the human eye perceive movement. For example, if you see a small notification on the taskbar, and if your eye is focused on another app on your computer, you can see the notification only if it involves movement. This is based on some functions of the human eye. So the start of the course is about how humans perceive information, how human brain understands what happens in the world. So this is like, psychology and human brain lectures. Actually, the foundations of HCI were made from psychology people, not from computer people. Jacob Nielsen, Donald Norman, and all these who were the founders of this discipline were psychologists, not computer people. And that's why it is important for students to understand how people think and perceive information. But after that, we go to the more practical stuff. We teach the basic principles of design, the 10 classic principles as were originally developed by Jakob Nielsen. These principles are very generic, but we need to teach generic principles because, apps and all this stuff developed on web or on mobile phones keep changing. So you cannot go to very specific guidelines. Student needs to know the basic, the fundamental principles of design, not the very specific guidelines, which you can find them all over the internet. I think the 10 design principles by Nielsen are mandatory for such a course. But after this part of the course about how to design, you need to go to something that is the most important stuff for me, which is how to evaluate. Because as I say in the class, we are computer people, so we would really like to have, let's say, a formula that we put some data and then tell us exactly where to put each interface widget, but we cannot do that. HCI, to design very usable and user-friendly apps, involves both art and science. The art part, the creative part, we cannot claim that we are very good at it. Only people coming from such disciplines can come up with new design ideas. Of course, we have some processes that we could utilize, like design thinking approach, as you probably know, that could help us to develop ideas and mostly innovative ideas. But for me, the basic principle is to have your students design as they were absolutely correct. I mean, they don't need to care if their design is correct, and evaluate as everything was wrong. This is a basic motto in this course. As a matter of fact, we have some limits in design. For example, if you design for an Android platform, you have several other apps and some restrictions of the platform that puts you in a specific frame. So what is very important is to understand very well how to evaluate. This involves both qualitative methods and quantitative methods. So a very important part of the course is about evaluation techniques. Heuristic evaluating, cognitive walkthrough, and all this stuff that's included in the presentation, in the presentations that I assume you already have. Then after this first part, the first part, I say again, is some theoretical stuff about psychology and how human brain works. The basic principles of design, mostly including Nielsen's principles, and then some evaluation techniques. After this first part of the course, we need to go to the practical part. The practical part of the work begins with design thinking. What I actually do is start with a 4-hour session in the class where students are divided into teams, into groups, and following a very specific process, they develop their first paper prototype in the class. This is very important. If you follow the Stanford design thinking approach, 4 hours are enough for a first prototype. which at a second stage, students will further develop. In this 4-hour session, students first need to understand that they design for others, not for themselves. This is the first major lesson that students have to understand. Because, you know, if you take, for example, developers, they have this problem that they believe that whatever they design would match the needs of their users, which is actually not true. So what I do in the class is I ask students to exchange wallets. I start with an example, a prototype of an electronic wallet. So I ask students to exchange their wallets, start digging in each other's wallet, and develop a profile from the contents of the wallet of what the other person is. For example, you see students that carry no money, others have a lot of cards, other students have, for example, their plumber's card in the wallet. So they start discuss to understand what are the needs of their user, because each student designs for another student. The other student is the user of the app that he or she will develop. So the first part of this is to understand the needs. This is actually in the core of the user-centered design. And then they start building some simple prototypes on a paper. They also need to understand that we cannot afford to build prototypes on a tool as a first approach on designing an app, because it is very expensive if you find out that you need to change the app. So the paper prototype is, all major apps have been developed the first version on a paper prototype. So this gives an interest for the students to be actively involved in the design of a prototype app. So then comes the first assignment. The first assignment is mostly about evaluating existing apps. So we use the evaluation methods that are taught in the class, and I ask them to evaluate some and compare apps of their choices. It is important to start as an evaluator, because you can see, you can notice stuff which actually offer you important knowledge of what to do and what not to do in your own app. Okay, this is a very simple first assignment, but at this point we start using tools. It is important to show our students specific tools that they can use in their evaluation. For example, I'm a very fan of Optimal Workshop, which is, I can show you, I can share the screen and show you. Give me a minute to see, where is that? Anyway, I will share my screen. This is Optimal Workshop. I don't know if you can see my screen. This is actually a very interesting tool, which is also free for a number of users. First, it has, I don't know if you have used this or if you are aware. The first is it provides tools for to organize the content. It's called the card sorting technique, which helps you to organize content like, you know, if you have a catalog or if you have menus that you should decide what are the first level categories and the second level categories and so on. I say again, it's a very easy way to do this. You can see a demo. I'm not going to show you in full detail. For example, what is card sorting, as I told you, is a way, a method, a technique to organize your content. They have a demo here about a company called banana.com, where some first questions that are not very important here, if you want. So here the designer selects the basic items, for example, in a catalog or in a menu, and this list is sent to the users, the ones. The idea here is that if we make a catalog or a menu, sometimes we believe that we should put this item into this category and so on, but this is how we see things, the designers. Actually, users may have a completely different idea concerning how the content should be organized. So we leave this task to the users that participate in this test. What users do is pick up the category and create their own categories very easily. For example, I believe that these 3 items should be in the same category. As I said before, now I act as a user. I can give a title on my own, whatever that is, and then I can create new categories and so on, or I can change. And at the end, I collect the results, which help us to organize the content. This is the first. It has several results, how content should be organized, what items should be together, and so on. Like this, I'm not going to get into detail, but the results are you know, impressive. For example, this is a dendrogram of how content should be organized in starting from categories with fewer items and going up to the root of this catalog. And several other, this optimal workshop has several other tools that could be used, and I find very, very useful for people to evaluate apps or web apps, mobile or web. So after students develop their prototype during the design thinking process and start evaluating other apps, I'm going into more hard stuff. I have a session, a lab about Android Studio. Actually, this is a class for students that are willing to actually develop an app. So here, we also have tools, prototyping tools. I use, let me share the screen again. I use, for example, Figma is a very well-known prototyping tool, which is absolutely great for people working in teams together, because they can design an app while 2 or 3 people working together at the same time, so remotely, and comment on the app. This is something that real businesses can use. This is all these tools that I show you are free up to a certain level, but it's for such a course are absolutely sufficient. Of course, there are other tools. For example, Proto.io is also a prototyping tool. It's very simple, very easy to use. It has great look and feel. You can test it on your mobile phone. You can see it actually. You don't need no coding skills at this point with these prototyping tools. You just develop prototypes. Okay. But I also show them, as I said before, how to develop, for example, this is a video from the online class we had on this issue using Android Studio. Because we have this COVID situation, so we had to do this online. And I record this, and people learn how to develop, you know, Android Studio apps. For those people that are more, you know, developers. Okay, I am sure that you have been confused so far. I'll try to, wait a minute. I'll try to wrap up things. And at the end, I start, then I go to the second assignment where people design their own app, they evaluate, and optionally, whoever wants can develop an Android app. This, if you decide, if a team of students decide to actually develop the app, they are excused from the exams. They give no exams. But they have to deliver a fully working Android app. But this is optional. Okay. Of course, several students decide to develop the app, and certainly they need to have some more time. For example, we had the exams on this course on the 30th of June, and students that decide to develop an app had an extension until the end of July. So they need around 2 months, more or less, to develop an app. At the end, I'll show some additional stuff, some extra stuff. For example, I show them stuff like persuasive design. Persuasive design is follows some principles that aim at persuading users to execute a certain behavior. A certain behavior is like, you know, clicking on a certain button, purchasing something, and so on. There are several principles that I can show you as some, you know, stuff from the presentation. I think that might be interesting to do. Give me a minute to find this. Find this presentation. Just a minute. I will find it. So actually, it is lost in the somewhere in my folders. Okay, I got it. Okay, because it's in Greek, I will show you some fundamental stuff here. Well, the idea, I will skip some some cases, some persuasive principles. It's in Greek, so there are some 6 persuasive strategies. Reciprocity is the first one. For example, when people give us a like or something like this, we feel obliged to give them back. So we need to add some elements of offerings in our design in order to get people persuaded to do actions we really want to them. The second part, the second principle is scarcity. People tend to give high importance to items, for example, that seem to be in scarcity. For example, that's why we see limited time offers and all this stuff. You see here, you cannot read, but for example, when I go to purchase a bag, it says here, you can buy only 1 bag, for example, which is based on this scarcity, or this we see in Amazon or others, only 5 left in stock. Or when you go to an airline and try to book a seat, a ticket, and they say that, you know, we have only 2 seats available and so on. These all are very important, particularly in e-commerce apps, where what you want to do is to persuade your users to actually purchase, to do these last steps. So you provide these peripheral, as we say, motivations to make them. For example, another principle is liking. You know, the problem is, it's in Greek, so I will explain. The problem is that people see a computer screen and not humans, and people do not trust computers. They need to see humans. That's why when we design, we put real faces, we put real people behind you know, images and pictures of real people, so the users feel more comfortable that they interact with someone behind the app and not just computers. The fourth principle is authority. People trust certain authorities. That's why we use in our, for example, as I said, this is mostly applied on e-commerce apps. We put, you know, approvals from authoritative vendors or parties that we users trust. Social proof is the fifth principle. As you know, herding behavior, people tend to do what other people do. That's why when we see, you know, 10 million likes on a video, people used to tend to say, okay, this is good. If other people like it, this is good. So we need to have such elements in our design. And the sixth principle is commitment, that you need to provide to people reasons for doing a certain behavior. So some examples of how real world websites or web or apps and so on combine these elements. This is additional stuff, and also Google Analytics, which is a way of evaluating in a quantitative manner our apps. This additional stuff that we offer to students. Another stuff, for example, another presentation that I added this year, because, you know, we have to update the course, is about ethics of user experience, which is a very hot issue, and how designers should take into account ethical design principles. So let me wrap up. I said a lot of stuff in a very short time. The course has 3 parts. The theoretical, as I said before, human as an information processor, Nielsen's principles, and the basic evaluation stuff. It is very important to focus on experimental evaluation techniques. And then we go to the practical part, which involves design thinking, Android Studio lab, and to show students prototyping tools and evaluation tools. We need tools in order to be more specific and get more interesting results. And at the third part, I have some additional stuff, like the one I showed you before, persuasive design and ethical UX, and so on. Some stuff that adds value to the design they make. And of course, it's very important the assignments are very important. I can give you an example. Of course, it's in Greek, but you will understand. Of a student's report. Give me a minute. Well, this is a report, a deliverable of a student's assignment. I will go. Okay. The first part is to compare applications, existing applications, using certain evaluation techniques. So this team of students select to compare Revolut and N26, taking data from App Store or Google Play and so on, and perform heuristic evaluation, and both quantitative and qualitative, for example, taking the comments of the students. I also teach them some text mining stuff, and they can process the comments to extract the most important problems. Katerina, am I talking too much?
No, you're not.
Okay. So this is the first part where people, practice on specific apps. The second part, this is results from heuristic evaluation. Okay. They use, as I told you before, tools like Optimal Workshop. You can see the results from Optimal Workshop. You can see here that Optimal Workshop has the ability to provide a heat map where people click when you ask them to perform a certain task, so you can know if they understand if the design is usable, so they click on the right selection. This is from Optimal Workshop. Let me go to the part where they design their own app. Here's the second part. It says second part where they use Figma to design their own app. This is an app where, a food delivery app that these students had decided to design. And they show this, the screenshots of this. They start then doing, this is heuristic evaluation of this app. This is chalk mark analysis, which is a type of evaluation provided by Optimal Workshop, where you can see what we call first click impression and all this stuff. And then experimental evaluation, where they use certain tools to do this. This is the redesign of their app. And this is also, I asked students to have a short video of their app. So for example, these people, demonstrate their app. This is easy to communicate. Okay. Like a demo. And some people, as I said, select optionally to develop their own app. The most part of the course is for the app they develop. Okay, develop, design, and evaluate. Okay, I'm talking how much more than half an hour. So, okay, I'll stop here. And of course, the presentations have been developed by Mariana, I believe, and the structure and so on. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you for your presentation. So now that Professor Lekakos is here, do we have questions about HCI and all the procedure of teaching the course of HCI?
Okay, it's not easy to tell you in half an hour how this course goes, but what is important to get the message that people actually need to design and, if possible, to develop something, and most importantly, to evaluate. This is the meaning.
Yes, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not teaching SCI, but I'm interested in, so that's why. You mentioned about theoretical part. I'm just wondering whether there are any classic theories on design and on evaluation that the student should know. Of course, there are principles, but I'm not quite sure whether there are really classic models that is a must for the student to know for the design, also for the evaluation.
Actually, you know, there are some theoretical stuff like, you know, the design principles by Nielsen and so on. But I think design thinking is the main, let's say, theoretical approach we can teach them and actually have them apply in the class in order to understand how the process of design evolves. Because, you know, if we are in a department of arts and graphics, you know, then we would teach them how, you know, to design images and stuff like this. But we see it from a computer science perspective. And the difficult stuff in computer science or related departments is to make students understand what is user-centered design that they need to design for users and not for themselves, and what exactly is user experience, which is something very difficult to define because this is something you feel. So I spent a few hours on explaining the role of emotions on the final outcome of this interaction. Because, you know, when you use an app at the end, you feel something. If this is positive or negative, it determines if you are going to use this app again. Okay, so theoretical stuff, as I said, I think the most important theoretical stuff is about design principles by Nielsen and also the evaluation techniques. It's not really theoretical in the sense of a course, you know, like in a strategy course or in a management course or stuff like this. These are it shouldn't be a very theoretical course, as a matter of fact.
In conclusion, you have to apply the theory anyway to show whether it's working or not, right?
Yes.
For example, we talk about color code combination, whether you should use what color, like the text, the background, whatever. But again, it's up to the user whether they feel comfortable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because theory might say, for example, a red color, if you use a red color in a button, The red color is about alert, is about danger, is about, but also it attracts the eye. So some users may be attracted, while others maybe feel that if I press this button, something danger will happen. Something bad will happen. So it's up to users. That's why I don't really comment when people design and start presenting their designs. I only discuss and try to understand the reason that they selected to put this widget on this place in the screen. But I never say that it's wrong or right. It simply must follow the basic principles. For example, users need to get a feedback. This is a basic principle. Users need to know where, for example, you cannot, if you add an item in a shopping cart, people need to see, to take the feedback that this item has been added. So I will comment only when I see that no feedback is provided, but the way it's provided, there is no right or wrong. People, users should evaluate this. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Lekakos, now that you talked about red color, I remind a story. One of my first projects in the laboratory was in cooperation with Professor Lekakos. And when I was trying to design my first bar chart, all the bars that I was thinking that are important were red for me. For this reason, I went with my bar charts to Professor Lekakos and I told him, these are our results. So the answer of Professor Lekakos was, are they going to be explode? No. Are they bad? No. So I think that we have to change the colors. Also, Professor Lekakos, Sumota asked us if we have a textbook as a main textbook that you would like to suggest to people. Yeah,
I usually use Dix's book. I think, Mariana, you can share the...
Dix?
Yeah, Dix, Alan Dix.
Is that on user
actually,
design, right?
Yeah, yes, that's right. But this is actually a reference book. For example, it's a large book which contains almost everything. And people could use it only if they don't understand something from the slides or the lectures and so on, because it's a, it has a lot of theory method in it. But you cannot really do a lot of theory in such a course. People get bored. You should have them, design and evaluate and solve them tools. Besides the first part, which are the basic principles of design, I think textbook is not really necessary. But Dix is the book, yeah. The book from Dix is the one I use.
One more question from the chat. Big data comes from machine, human, and organizational activities. What do you think about IoT? Does it also include HCI? Thank you. It's from Ushu.
Yes, very good question. Actually, whatever involves interaction between humans and an artifact is in the field of HCI. IoT, for example, when used in, let's say, omni-channel marketing applications, certainly involves interaction with customers, with users. And yes, it is in the, I can say it is a part of HCI. Whatever involves interaction must follow between humans and machines, must follow the basic principles of HCI in order to provide a better user experience to the users. Yes, actually, our IoT, we have this part about omnichannel marketing where we discuss how you can combine the physical and the digital store. Katerina is more familiar with that.
From the chat, I don't have any other questions, but are there any other questions from the people that are here?
Hi, Katerina.
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I was late in joining the session.
No worries.
So I just wanted to make a point there. So basically what Professor Lekakos is saying is that instead of focusing on a lot of theory, but more applying methodology on how to design from this design requirement to feedback getting on the design from the user. So so the steps, I think, there are several approaches in well-known approaches in HCI. So for example, lean UX, lean user experience, there's human-centered design. I think I would encourage to adopt one of this method and adopt that in the course and use that throughout the course and ask the student to apply it from the design requirement up to the end user testing, getting feedback, how to improve the design. Just my comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, the idea is to keep students active. And so learn by doing, actually. It's not really, you know, starting theories and stuff like this, besides from the first lectures, okay?
Yeah, I mean, HCI is like a semi-soft course, right? It's not really hard, it's semi-soft. So CI student tends to get bored. What is this theory? So
yeah. So actually, this is a good point, because it is indeed in the let's say in the middle of programming and you know, something soft. So there are students that are very good in programming. So we leave them the option to actually develop something, but many students are not familiar with programming, so they need just to develop prototypes, and the prototyping tools give you the impression that it is actually developed, and they are very simple. They are drag and drop tools. So students feel that, you know, like they have developed something, but it's not actually developed. It feels like developed. So it's very good for them and gives them motivation to improve it. And this makes the course very interesting. Okay, so
any other comment? Any other question?
Hi,
I
Catherine.
can ask one more question. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I keep
No,
going.
after you. After you. No problem.
Okay. You mentioned that usually in this class you ask the student to design prototype. I'm just wondering, how do you grade the design of the students to compare, like which one is better, or you know?
Actually, what I grade is if they have applied the right methodologies. I don't grade if their prototype is bad or good, but I need to see the evaluation results. I need to see good combination of quantitative and qualitative evaluation methods. That's what I grade. I don't grade if they have done, you know, what the users say. It's the job of the users to say if it is good or bad. Yes.
It might be the case that they apply all the principles, but it doesn't look nice.
Okay.
Is it possible? You understand my point, right?
Yes. But
they
it's
apply
possible.
everything, but it does look nice compared with the other prototype.
Yeah.
Just wondering, what is the best way to grade the design? Because I agree with you, it's the art.
I don't grade the app. The app is graded.
Okay.
The app is graded by the users. I grade if they follow the right steps and they have done correctly the design approach and the evaluation, mostly the evaluation. I really focus on the evaluation. They need to know how to collect the results, to do statistical tests, because you also need some stuff like this. This is my main concern.
Right. So if I can add, so I also do not grade on the design or the result of the app. I grade on if they've gone through the process, if they did the process correctly. If they did the process correctly, then they would have user input, and that would be the feedback on how good the design is. So what the user said about the design. So the key here to HCI is not for the student to be able to create a good design for an application, but they know how to do a process to develop a good design. So not the design itself, not the product itself, but they understand the process, the steps, the framework.
Also very, very important to have followed, you know, if you want to do a user-centered design, you should consult your users and take the requirements and stuff like this. I try to explain them, but that we don't take only, when we discuss with our users, functional requirements is not that important. The important is to understand what is the actual psychological need of a user that actually urges to use an application. For example, what's the design of Messenger, of Viber? It's a very simple design. But think of some key widgets in for example, in Messenger or in Viber, where you can see if your message is delivered, if the recipient of the message has read the message, what psychological process, you know, people start saying, oh, my message has been delivered. He or she has read it, but he hasn't answered. Why is that? This is very smart. I mean, it evokes psychological responses which are very important because the design is almost naive. Okay, some boxes where you put your text in there and press send. But think of these elements that evoke, you know, if your message has been delivered. It sounds like a functional requirement that I need to know that my message has been delivered. But actually, as you can see from the experience, people interpret in very strange ways these system responses. So a key question when you discuss with your users, I had this guy that developed an alarm application, just an alarm to wake up in the morning. But what is the need behind that? The need is I don't want to be late in my work. I don't want to be late. You know, maybe I will miss the bus. Maybe there is a whole of psychological reasons that this app needs to be supportive. It's not functional, actually. I will develop, as a designer, we develop the functions, but I need to understand what's the fears, what's the stress behind the need of a user for such an app. And this is very difficult to dig up if you discuss with users. Okay, there are emotions behind apps, which is very difficult to understand. But there are techniques, other techniques, for example, the key question when discussed with your users is why, to keep asking why. For example, a user says, I want to have, you know, an app that wakes me up in the morning. Okay, why? He explains. And as you keep asking why, you reach the level to understand the psychology behind this need, which is very, very difficult.
Hakeem, I think that it's your turn.
Yeah, one thing I was just thinking, because right now I'm actually in Finland. I've been here since February, and I'm working on a project in actually designing a tool for studying writing. And so it's basically dealing with a lot of data that people generate when they write text on computers. So I'm actually working hands-on with data and data representation. And one thing I've been working on is actually interaction with data and also interaction with information representation, because typically it's usual representations that we do are static. But now I realize that there are a lot of interactions that we can build into information representation. So you can actually interact with your information and your data once it's processed. So I think, do you have any ideas, Professor, about how we can teach that? Because I do it in practice, but I think one important thing, since it's a data science course, HCI is in a data science environment, do you think that we can actually include that as well in a course?
This is actually very important, but I think we are somewhat limited from the tools used to analyze data and their way of they present the data.
Yeah.
Certainly, you can teach students how to develop, let's say, dashboards or stuff like this. But I think that we mostly rely on the tools. So actually, you have to decide what is the best tool for data representation. Mm-hmm. This is why certainly there is this visualization part, especially in business analytics, which is very important. But they mostly use tools. They don't, already tools that are already there. It's quite difficult to develop.
Yeah, I guess it's different in my case because I'm developing the tool that does the analysis of the data. So that gives me a lot of freedom to do representations and build in interactions.
But I think this is actually something I hasn't really focused in my course, because all these are enough for a course.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be an issue with time if we include that, because that's going to be
but this is very important actually in our time. This is very important of how to present data.
Yeah.
So, any other question?
Actually, if there is no other question, I have a meeting now, so I have to skip. Maybe, and I have to leave. My apologies for this. But Mariana knew that I had this. But if there's any other question, please send it to Katerina or Mariana, and I will be happy to answer that at a later stage. Okay.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. I hope I gave you some ideas. So as I said, if there are any questions, please send them to Katerina, and I will be happy to reply. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Jaklam, you want to add anything? You are AAT leader on this subject. That's why we have to close this session very early.
Yes, I shared partial agreements with what Professor said about designing and evaluation. But of course, each lecture can incorporate different style that you may want to focus on, right? But I think the core is still design using principles, understanding human truly, and then evaluate using statistical tests, or at least some sort of observations. And definitely we should always combine quantitative and qualitative. I think the common mistakes of students believing that only survey and interview are sufficient. That is probably the biggest mistake they would probably think about. So we should always remind them, and we should always tell them what are the possible quantitative measures that you haven't thought of. So I think SCI is a very standard course, it's a very interesting course. This is the book that I use. I'm not sure you guys can see. Unfortunately, I don't think so because of my virtual background.
Mm-hmm.
It's Human-Computer Interaction and Empirical Research Perspective. Yes, this is the book I use. So I work on SCI more on the objective side. So that is the book I use, yeah.
Can you type in the chat the name of the author? Yeah.
Of course.
Because he actually taught this class last semester, but I think you focus on certain aspect that is different from general SCI. Do you want to share that?
I focus heavily on, first of all, in the beginning of my course, I focus on definitely history of SCI, okay? And second lectures, I focus on human psychology, short-term memory, long-term memory, attention, memory, brain, neuroscience. And I think the main thing we need to explain to them is the human model processor. That is the must that you have to talk about so human model processor. And then I talk about design everyday things by how can I forget that? Design everyday things by I think it's Norman. Yeah, it's Norman. There are 6 design principles, and I provide a lot of examples. By the way, I think I can. Please give me maybe 1 minute. I can share you guys the link of my slides. So please wait. Okay.
You don't use Nelson's design principles?
I do. But I talk about design everyday thing first because that is more. That is probably more high level and more general. Yeah. So design everyday thing is probably a good start. And then once we talk about heuristic evaluation, we can talk about Nelson. Yeah. But anyway, I think design everyday things is a good book. And then design principles, I have a lot of case study. Like I gave them elevator buttons and let them think about what is wrong with the design. I give them shower. I give them like 10 assignments, basically, really a lot of assignments to let them think about what I think I have Google Classroom too, so I can just for your reference.
Would you like to share your screen?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Okay, so I'm going to upgrade you.
Okay.
I made you co-host, so you're ready.
Okay. So I think I can check this. Okay, and okay. So Classroom. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the students have to complete all this assignment. So it's really a lot, but history is, I did not ask them really a lot. I just asked them to, by the way, is the font too small? I can increase the size. So I think history, I did not ask them to do too much. Basically, I want them to explore what have been done in SCI, basically using this scipioneers.wordpress.com. They describe a bunch of people that had made a huge impact to SCI. So I asked them to take a look at them, tell me what they did in a very brief way. just as a good start. But I think the highlight of the course is this one, which, for example, I think everyone are very familiar with the Miss Universe incident on 2015, right? In which it was announced wrong, right? Yes. And then I just get the screenshot and ask them that, hey, how come it is possible that such kind of mistake can happen, right? That is example. I also give them example of a gear system, comparing PR-NDL and PNDLR. I think this is what we use currently, right? I think, yes, PR-NDL, right? But I want to let them imagine why PNDLR is such a bad thing. Yeah, so they enjoy this. I show them the etiquette and let them answer why there's a common mistake where people sit in the wrong place. Yeah, and I don't know why I cannot show the screenshot. Yeah, but anyway, it's right. Everyone can access this one because I open it public. You can use the Google Classroom code, and you can take a look at everything. Shower, I show them shower design, and then I ask them why learning to shower in a hotel is such a bad experience, almost always. And I ask them to try to evaluate, to think about more deeply, and then try to redesign. Yeah. I think I should not show this, right? But anyway, I want them to survey around their surroundings and give me some bad designs. I asked them why people always forget ATM card. Yeah, give me explanation which part of human psychology explain why human can always forget the card. And then of course, I asked them why when people are running to the elevators, why sometimes we always press a close button accidentally instead of the open button, right? I think the design is wrong, right? So these are just example. And then after design, I think that is the part that I am quite different from what professor has did. That is, I focus a lot on experiment. I focus on experimental design, human factors. So there's a lot of things that I include that is very heavily focused on experimental design. And then I think the key part that I heavily focus is also on ANOVA, F-test, T-test, how to correctly evaluate in the objective way. And of course, I also include Hickman law, Fitts model, CD gain, KLM, and then finally, they will have a bunch of projects, and each is separate into phase. And phase 0 and phase 1 is basically they have to start in the beginning. Phase 2 is in the middle, and phase 2, phase 3 is near the end of the course. So they have to do all of this. I guess is from January 17 until May 7. Yeah, just an example. Yeah, I hope I don't talk too much, but that is basically what I did in my course. Yeah, thank you.
It's very interesting, actually.
But it's a lot of work.
Yes.
How many assignments, and also you have to do class project.
They complain a lot, but finally, I guess they show appreciation, and they actually enjoy it. So I guess in the beginning they dislike me, and in the end is a good ending. Yeah.
That's the best, actually. The good ending.
So. Yeah.
Do you have also written exams or just the assignments?
Actually, I have written exams, midterm and final too. Yeah. Midterm and final final is related to ANOVA, and midterm is related to design. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other comments, or is there any other who would like to share his experience as teaching HCI course?
Catherine, I'd like to share a book that I use right now. Let me see. Okay. Screen is shared, so.
Stop sharing, right? Okay.
Yep, thank you. So a book I use is this. It's actually called Data Visualization Handbook. Yeah, it's by Yuso. I can type it in. How do I do this? To everyone, yeah. Okay. No, it's a really nice book. It basically tells guides on different visualizations and stuff like that, which I think is pretty interesting because I use it right now to do real hands-on visualization. So that's a nice book that we can actually look into. So I can just type it in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hakeem.
Thank you. But I also have one more book that I want to share. That is, hopefully you guys can see, is Discovering Statistics using IBM SPSS Statistics. So by Andy Field. I think there is no doubt that this is the best book in SPSS. Yeah. But there's one problem that I found, that is some university, you don't have the license of SPSS, right? Then what do you do? There's actually an open source that is very, very similar, but it's open source and it's very easy to use. And it's called JASP. I can type that in. JASP.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I can also send you the link.
And
yep.
I was thinking that I am the only person that loves SPSS. Thank you, Chaklam, that you use also SPSS.
I mean, SPSS is easy and it is, yeah, and it's very nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hakeem, do you also have many assignments like Chakam did? 10 assignments?
Yes.
Okay.
I initially started off with like 60 students for my course when I first started teaching at Peradeniya, and now I end up with like 20 because I give them a lot of work to do because it's HCI is like it's a very hands-on. It's actually what I call art and science. So typically, you can't learn art without drawing. So similarly, you can't learn HCI without actually doing it. So students are generally given assignments every week, and like 15 assignments. And then we also have a hands-on workshop where we take the typical designing a wallet. So you take your friend's wallet and then you have these reciprocal discussions with them, and you keep designing until you design something that ultimately may not even look like a wallet, but it actually serves the purpose of why that person uses a wallet. So it's design thinking, hands-on experience. So we have that kind of workshop as well. So yeah, but students typically don't like a lot of assignments, so they drop off.
Professor Lekakos' assignment is huge. Now that he's gone, I can speak. It's huge. Because I was a student of Professor Lekakos, and we were thinking that it's a very simple task. We will build some designs, and that is all. But it is huge. And what he says that that he gives more time after the exams, it is true. And probably some of the students will ask him to deliver their project even some days later, but they are doing good work. So at first they think that is something simple. Afterwards, they understand that it's very difficult. Afterwards, they speak very bad of him. And in the end, they need more time to make it even better. I think it is a course that when you start doing the assignment, you are feeling very creative, which you don't have the feeling when you first start. You have to be in the middle, and you want some more time to search a lot, to make some better evaluations, to work on better tools. It's a tricky lesson, and I think that is why he has a big assignment, not in the beginning, but in the middle and to the end of the class.
I now understand that there is a specific cluster of professors that teach HCI, and these are the professors that are now in our session. Okay, any other comments? Anything else that you would like to discuss? If not, we may close the session.
I would like to say something that
Yes,
you
yes.
will find in the presentation many Greek screenshots. I think you understand that it's better to show examples of our everyday life. So if a site is very popular here or some tool or some, I don't know what, you have to customize it in order to make it yours. So you have to find a screenshot of a very popular website to show, because we have many Greek examples in it.
We explain what is the example, but we have the screenshot of the Greek shop actually.
Okay, of course we have well-known established websites or tools, but we also have many Greek.
Yes, actually then is according to the customization of each university and each country. Thank you, everyone. I think that we will see you in 1 hour and a half approximately. If you would like to attend a social network analysis, we will be together again.
Yeah.